Primary day in Maine. Let's check it out. All right, welcome to Rob Schmitt Tonight. Another primary Tuesday, and tonight we focus in on the state of Maine, where the Democrats' synthetic Senate candidate Graham Platner will cruise to victory tonight. Platner is virtually unopposed, only mildly threatened by the state's governor, Janet Mills, who's technically still in this primary Senate race, but with a suspended campaign, and she has done no campaigning recently. Platner's newest ad, doubling down on his gritty, rugged image. Tweeting, "This state raised me, this state saved me. Go vote." Take a look.
Good to see you. How are you? Thank you so much.
This is great.
Yeah, we're okay. We're okay. It's the weirdest experience of my life.
I saw you were sweating bullets, shucking oysters at the
apprentice shop. These past few weeks are brutal. Brutal.
I'm so glad he's coming because he will not be attacked here.
Raw and rugged Graham Platner, a working-class real man from Maine. What an image they have manufactured around this guy. An oyster-shucking, blue-collar hero who's going to go to Washington and fight for real Americans. It sounds great, right? It sounds perfect. Looks like a movie, especially at a time when affordability is crushing everyone. He's so perfect, and that is not a coincidence. This was all part of a well-designed plan by a couple of the weirdest socialists you've ever seen. Daniel Moraff and Leanne Phan, seen here, first discovered by the New York Post as the mad scientists who discovered and groomed Graham Platner, replicating a playbook they've used in Nebraska and Iowa, according to the Post. The two, bizarrely, have been more than willing to tell anybody that asks just how processed and how fabricated Graham Platner's campaign really is. Take a listen to this.
How did you find Graham Platner?
Well, we went through thousands and thousands of prospects. We, through a number of means, assessed just a huge amount of people. Then, Leanne pulled up this video of this guy with an oyster farm, and then she pulled up his FEC history and saw, the money he'd given to Bernie Sanders and, some other people. And that was enough information to know that we had the best prospect that we'd maybe ever seen.
Okay, so ignore just how bizarre he is for just a minute. We're going to get to that in a second. But he said, we looked at thousands of prospects. This is how politics works now, apparently. And then they found a guy with an oyster farm. So it's like casting, right? This is like what we do with movies. They look at thousands of potential actors auditioning. Movies are fake. This is kind of fake, too. Here's more. The socialists responding to all the psychosis that they missed from their dream candidate. All of this baggage that's come out now from this candidate who was built to steal Susan Collins' Senate seat and flip the Senate. Take a listen.
How did you think your way through the fact that he had posted these things on social media?
I said none of this will or should stop him from becoming a U.S. Senator.
And what was your
Clearly,
thinking there?
Agree. I think if what the voters wanted were people who were grown in vats and had never done or said anything that they might regret their entire lives, we'd have a very different country. Part of our thesis here is that people do not want their candidates grown in vats. They want people who are real human beings.
They want people who are real human beings, says the guy from Jupiter who's manufacturing Senate candidates. Is this a real interview? This is like from outer space. Real human beings, huh? Graham Platner's oyster farm is a business that he started with a friend who owns an island in Maine, and that island holds the farm. The oysters go to Graham Platner's mom's restaurant. So everyone's doing quite well in Platner's inner circle. Platner's father and grandfather were both loaded. Graham went to a boarding school called Hotchkiss in Connecticut. Look at how incredible this place looks. If you've got $80,000 a year for your child's education, they can also go there. Known for schooling the children of elites. Elites are those people that Graham Platner claims to despise.
The fact that Jeff Bezos exists and the fact that I know someone in Sullivan who works 3 jobs and pays 60% of her monthly income in rent, those two things are directly connected. There is no metric of hard work that justifies a billionaire when people in eastern Maine work 3 jobs just to put food on the table.
But you don't work 3 jobs to put food on the table. You're one of the people that you despise, not a billionaire, but your dad bought your house for you with cash. And your anti-billionaire, anti-elite campaign has been supported by at least 4 billionaires. Those billionaires must be okay, right? Jeff Bezos, as he just said, shouldn't exist. But if you want to fund his campaign, you're fine. He'll even have dinner with you. A totally phony campaign, as phony as his tired and focus-grouped messaging has been, that sounds like everybody else in Washington. Take a listen.
This kind of politics isn't a fantasy. This kind of politics, it's not romantic. This kind of politics is real. This is the kind of politics that wins. But when we've won, when we have beaten back fascism, when we have protected democracy, when we save freedom, this time around it needs to be a different kind of freedom.
Oh, I'm so burly. I'm so masculine. I'm just what the Democrat Party has been missing. I'm Graham Platner. Freedom, democracy, fighting fascism with a deep voice. The socialist candidate who wants to protect democracy and beat fascism. We haven't seen that play before, have we? This is the part, this is where the socialist weirdos that created him come in, writing all the scripts so he sounds like everybody else. It seems the only authentic part of Graham Platner are his scandals at this point. A Nazi tattoo that it appears he loved for nearly 20 years, branding himself the same as concentration camp guards who murdered millions of not just innocent men, but innocent women and babies. Think about what concentration camp guards did to innocent little kids. And then remember that this guy wanted to have the same brand on his chest that those guards had. It is surreal how they are glossing over the fact that he had that tattoo for 19 years. It's unbelievable with how much BS they throw around over every little stupid tweet from the president. But this, we can get past this. I mean, what frickin' planet are we on? And his supporters, all indoctrinated by the Democrat Party and the media as well, are fine with it. Just listen to this one.
Totem Coke tattoo, the Nazi tattoo. How do you kind of?
I think people are making as much of it as they can because they don't have a lot of substance around anything else. So.
What if he had like a Israeli flag tattoo or something? Would that be a deal breaker?
Honestly, yeah, because I don't support genocide and he doesn't either.
So she just hates the Jews. I guess it's a perfect match, right? Tattoo, Nazi tattoo, whatever. But just don't like the Jews. It's okay. It actually makes perfect sense. Add to the tattoo the manhandling of women coming out in the New York Times and cheating like a stray dog in a brand new marriage. Where's the party of cancel culture? They're so powerful. Where are they in this moment? Incredible how they only use their most powerful weapon when it's politically advantageous. Such restraint they have. The left is running a very fake movement, and Graham Platner fits in perfectly. All right, Senator Eric Schmitt joins us now. Let's talk about Graham Platner. He's likely going to be your colleague at this point. Well, I won't say likely, but he's got a pretty good shot in the state of Maine. When you listen to that interview from the Wall Street Journal of these 2 strange birds that found him and kind of manufactured him as a candidate, is it not bizarre to see how politics works these days?
Well, I think the Democrats are so desperate to find like a regular dude to run for office that doesn't believe in like 85 genders and is a total creeper that they settled on this guy. And the The fact is, he's this spoiled rich kid who's like cosplaying as like a guy you'd have a beer with. Well, the truth is, he's like evidently prone to sexual assault and's got a Nazi tattoo. Surprise, surprise. So they clearly did not vet this guy, Rob, but they're going to go with him because they're hell bent on power and control, and they want to pack the court and they want to add states to the union. So all this nonsense that they've lectured everybody about believe all women, they don't believe any of that. They just want raw power, and Graham Platner is just like the most recent example of how they'll twist themselves into knots just because of their Trump derangement syndrome.
It is so true. I mean, when you think about the story of his tattoo, you know, the first thing that pops into a lot of minds is Pete Hegseth's tattoo, which had absolutely no white supremacist, you know, origins at all. And they made such a big deal about Pete Hegseth's tattoo, and then they get a candidate on their side that has a legitimate concentration camp guard branded tattoo on his chest, and they're not concerned about that. And that tells you everything you need to know about how manufactured all of their outrage is. They're not offended by anything. It's all just, it's their way of controlling and gaining power with every move that they make. None of it's real. None of it's authentic.
No, nobody's buying it. And I hope that the people of Maine see through that too. I mean, really what this is an attempt to do is to con the people of Maine that you've got this guy who's like, you know, some like normal guy, some tough guy or something who can speak truth to power. The fact is he's a hypocrite. He's a phony. He's some spoiled rich kid who's acting like he's something he's not. And I think voters are pretty smart. If anything, I think people can spot a phony. They want authenticity. They don't want a guy like this.
So I mean, speaking of the Nazi tattoo, you've got Chuck Schumer, Bernie Sanders, two of the biggest Jewish senators, biggest, highest profile, I guess, both still supporting this guy despite his tattoo. Take a listen to Bernie.
I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that Graham Platner is the next senator from the state of Maine. Republican super PACs have already lined up some $99 million just on TV ads to defeat him. Why is that? Do you think they're worried about his views or what his relationship to women has been? I don't think so. What they are worried about is that he is going to be a strong voice against oligarchy. I'm supporting Graham Platner.
Supporting him, fighting against billionaires and oligarchy. One more thing we should point out, we can pull it up here. Platner receiving contributions from several billionaires, including George Soros, Jennifer Pritzker as well. Happy to take the billionaire money, even though he's against billionaires.
I mean, you know, he was talking about like locking people up, and he doesn't, you know, have elections go on for months. I mean, I don't think they have anything, Rob, to run on except they're opposed to Trump. And so this guy who's incredibly flawed and, like you said, has a Nazi tattoo and has all these allegations, does some really bizarre stuff in porta potties, evidently. I mean, there's just, the list goes on and on that would be disqualifying, but I think they're too far in the game or whatever. But they're going to ride this horse, and but I'm confident that the people of Maine are going to see through it.
Got the big baseball game tomorrow, the congressional ball game. You guys going to trounce the Democrats once again? You've been pretty good lately, right?
That's right. No, we're on a winning streak here, 5 in a row. So we need to get on top early and do some damage. But we're raising $3 million for charity. There's 35,000 people at Nats Park for the game. So I'll be in the lineup and going to represent Missouri.
All right, hit one deep for us. Senator, good to see you. Thanks so much.
Take care, Rob.
All right. Okay, Steve Robinson, editor-in-chief of the Maine Wire. Jon Levine, reporter for the Washington Free Beacon. Both have been immersed in Graham Platner for months, and it's good to have you guys here. Steve, you're in Maine tonight. He's going to win this primary. My question to you, is there a magic number that he needs to hit to make, I guess, the party feel safer about November?
I feel like I need to take a shower after you just said I was immersed in Graham Platner. After the way he's described what he would do to a burglar who breaks into his house. We've been covering his pathological lying about his entire life, basically. He's lied about everything. And no, there's not really a magical number. He's probably already hit 50%, which is what will end the election tonight for ranked choice voting. Maine has strong early voting. Democrats, usually 30 to 40% of them will vote early. So most had already cast their ballots before the New York Times did a catch and kill operation on the sexual assault and domestic violence story, which would have been much more aggressive if they had been honest with the claims that they made to the subjects that they interviewed about it. So they'd already voted. It was too late for them to make a pivot. That's in part why Governor Janet Mills, the only other legitimate contender, all she did was pop her head up and say, you know, I'm still on the ballot, but she never made an attempt to do a last-minute change. Now he has until July 13th to voluntarily terminate his candidacy, at which point the state Democratic Committee would hold a convention and decide by majority vote on a replacement. But people who know him, people I've talked with, said there's not a chance that he voluntarily terminates this, even if it gets Anthony Weiner level bad.
Yeah, they're gonna. It looks like, it does feel like they're gonna stick with him at this point, and they're just gonna try and survive all this, the catch and kill, like you said, when a company takes a story, kind of downplays it, gets it out there to kind of, you know, it's out there now, and it can't do any more damage, and they just kind of reveal it in a soft way. John, how surreal is it watching these two socialists that the Journal has reported on, that the Post has reported on, talk about kind of casting this guy like it's a movie or something?
Well, I think this is very representative of how Democrats are fielding candidates in recent years, because they're trying to appeal to a slice of the voters that they can't win on policy. So they're trying to sort of do this almost like a minstrel show. It reminds me of Tim Waltz when he would show up with a gun and, you know, hee-haw like Elmer Fudd. Like he thinks like, this is how we're going to get white working class voters who otherwise don't agree with our policies. So let's just find someone who sounds and looks like him. It's like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. You know, I feel Democrats are now about to jump into a black hole. And because, you know, what's in a black hole, we don't know. No one knows. And Graham Platner is a gigantic unknown, because everything that's come out, and there's been ample amounts of information that's come out, there's still so much more we don't know. For example, who are the women he was sending sexually explicit material to? Who are the women he was talking to on the app Kick, which is primarily used by minors? Why was he expelled from that fancy private school? Where is his father anyway? What's he been up to? Like, there's so many variables, there's so many unknowns, and they're all going to come out. And everyone has this sense that people are sitting on information, they're holding information and waiting to deploy it for sort of when we've reached the point of no return, and Democrats are going to have to just forfeit the seat.
Yeah, I mean, it's once you get, I mean, after this, it's a long road till November. I mean, it's just, we're just getting into summer now, so there's a long time for a lot of stuff to come out. Steve, does your gut tell you, as a guy that knows the state well, that Collins holds on to that seat at this point?
I do think Collins would hold on to the seat, and I think that she would have held on to the seat if she wasn't running against a pathological liar with a fake oyster business and a pattern of sexual deviancy. Even if Graham Platner was the person that he's described to be by his, you know, Hollywood-style handlers, Susan Collins would still win that seat. You have to remember, she is the best at winning elections in the state of Maine ever. She's won by 30 points over the current Secretary of State. She won by 9 points over Sarah Gideon in 2020 when the polls had her down. She has a tremendous constituent services operation. She's very, very good at doing the nuts and bolts, the mechanics of winning elections. And even though we've had 15 to 20,000 Democrats move here during the COVID pandemic lockdowns, and they brought their politics with them, she still remains a very effective, pragmatic, prudent politician. So I think she would still have at least even odds against Graham Platner. But with these scandals, absolutely, she holds on to the seat.
That's interesting. All right, I got to leave it there just for time. We appreciate you guys coming on, though, Steve and John. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, awaiting a sentencing that could come at any moment now after a quick guilty verdict in the state of Texas. Justice prevailing for Austin Metcalf. We've got that up next. Then later in news from the left, a very based Idris Elba talking James Bond.
You're dangerous.
A very interesting place to be right now. It's been 35 days, as you can see on the counter here behind me, since Nicolas Maduro, the leader of this country, was taken by Delta forces.
Because you're honest.
You don't get political. I don't think actors should. You know,
thank you. So break the glass.
And I guess this didn't sit too well with one of the Schmitt heads on Newsmax.
What the FCC is supposed to regulate, ABC breaks that law every single night. That is not a comedy show. That is propaganda.
Watch Rob Schmitt weeknights.
Did you know about 1 in 3 people with plaque psoriasis may also develop psoriatic arthritis? With fewer symptoms from moderate to severe plaque psoriasis, where would you go? Imagine being a million miles away. With Tremfya, clearer skin is possible. And for adults with active psoriatic arthritis, Tremfya goes beyond the skin. Less joint pain, stiffness, and swelling is possible. And Tremfya even reduced fatigue. Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections and liver problems may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and TB. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine. Imagine being a million miles away. Ask your doctor about Tremfya.
The road to greatness is long, but greatness isn't just forged from within. It has to be proven on the greatest stage of all.
The hype is real! This is the moment we have all been waiting for. Mike Hammond of Signal Relief. We've helped nearly 700,000 feel relief in their back, shoulders, and knees with our technology. But for many of us, it's our feet that hurt. And when they hurt, our walks get shorter, activities are skipped, and the moments we love start slipping away. That's why we created the Signal Step, a patent-pending insole built using the same proven technology people already trust from Signal Relief. Signal uses no drugs. There's nothing on the market like it. It's relief without the side effects. It's reusable, fits virtually into any shoe, and in a recent study, over 85% felt relief, and it comes with a money-back guarantee. So what are you waiting for? Feel relief with every step. If you're hurting, go to signalstep.com and get relief today.
Welcome back. Karmelo Anthony, guilty of murdering Austin Metcalf. A verdict coming down late this afternoon. Anthony stabbed and killed his white competitor at a high school track meet in Frisco, Texas, when they were just 17 years old. It's a story you've seen around a lot. The jury is now determining the sentence. They're working on it right now, right after the verdict. The judge ordering the jury to decide whether the murder was committed under sudden passion. If that's the case, then Anthony, on the right there, would only face between 2 and 20 years in prison. Now, if there is no unanimous decision on sudden passion, Anthony faces between 5 and 99 years in prison for murder, which is an extremely wide, broad gap. The confrontation happened in 2025. It was a rain delay at a track meet. Austin Metcalf and his brother and track team went into the bleachers, and they went underneath that tent right there that belonged to his school. Karmelo Anthony from another school was already in their tent, not with his own team in their own area. He was asked to leave by Austin Metcalf. There was a confrontation. Anthony pulls out a pocket knife from his backpack and plunges it right into Metcalf's chest, piercing his heart. It happened fast, we're told. He died in his twin brother's arms right there in that tent. Sholdon Daniels is an attorney from Collin County, Texas. He's been closely following this case, joins us now. Sholdon, good to have you on. Your reaction to what we saw today, and do you think sudden passion has a possible chance here?
You know, first of all, thank you for having me on the show again, Rob. My reaction to what happened today is, Rob, the jury got it right today. Austin Metcalf's life mattered. We honor him, and we want to protect this next generation of kids. Black, white, it doesn't matter. I have been a vocal advocate for, what's right and what's wrong in this entire situation. I'm catching a lot of flack for it as a black man. But I'll tell you what, we should never condone extreme violence in response to the smallest, thing.
Yeah.
This guy tapped him on his shoulder, and he used that as an excuse to murder him. And I think it's wrong, and I think the jury got it right today.
It's pretty surreal to see all of the fury outside of the courthouse and just how this has ignited some kind of a race story here. And I don't know if there's going to be riots tonight in that town, in that county. But it just seems like this is not really, a racial story. I mean, this is, it certainly isn't one of black victimhood in any sense of the manner. This is not. If this is a very justified verdict today. This seems like a pretty clear case, and even from the witnesses for the defense, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Even the defense witnesses came on the stand under oath, and they said, absolutely not. He could have walked away. He had many opportunities. He's the one who escalated the situation, and he's the one that ultimately turned a very commonplace altercation amongst young teenage boys into a murder scene, into a crime scene. And so for all these people out here behind me who are here in support of a Karmelo Anthony, you know, they're not here because they believe that he's right. They're here because they look at it as black boy kills a white boy. That's revenge for slavery. And I just do not subscribe to that. I think it's ridiculous. And I think that is the exact type of narrative that we as Americans in general, we need to stamp that out.
Yeah, it's quite toxic what I've seen outside of that courthouse. Sholdon Daniels, attorney, thank you for coming on. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, good to see you. All right, Trump at the Garden last night, taking all the blame today for a Knicks loss from all these politician fair weather fans in their stupid hats, just like Hakeem Jeffries. We're going to clap back coming up next.
Tonight's Newsmax lineup is brought to you by Crown Atlantic. Protect what matters most with fast, affordable life insurance. Visit lifeforless.com.
Spring. It's time to run it. Run it until the grass becomes a lawn, until the hedges duck and cover. Then run it again.
Hi there, I'm Dean Heskin, President and CEO of Swiss America. Most investors believe their IRA, 401k, and bank accounts are reliable and safe. But what if our economy becomes so dire that you're restricted from accessing your own money? The fact is that should your bank be in trouble for holding bad loans, the burden could fall on you to help bail them out. Even more concerning is that U.S. financial regulations allow banks to impose withdrawal limits on your hard-earned savings. But there's something you can do about it. Our team at Swiss America has a report called The Secret War on Cash. Learn how to protect yourself with assets that can remain outside the control of banks and other financial institutions. For over 40 years, Swiss America has been one of the most trusted metal firms in the country. So don't wait. Call or text the number on your screen today for financial peace of mind in these uncertain times.
Some wireless companies say that they stand for something. What exactly do they stand for, and why won't they say it out loud? Let me tell you what Patriot Mobile stands for. They stand for the lives of the unborn. They stand for the Second Amendment and the right to protect yourself and your family. They stand for our veterans and first responders who sacrifice so much for our freedom. Make the switch to Patriot Mobile today and support a company that doesn't just say they stand for something, but one that stands for the things that matter the most.
It's 2 a.m., your fever spiked and you're miserable. Here's your options.
Urgent care, closed. ER, slammed, and you'll spend hundreds of thousands in both. Telehealth, yeah, but the pharmacies are closed.
That's the reason why we keep emergency medical kits at home.
It has doctor-prescribed medication like generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, other antibiotics and antivirals. You can treat flu, pneumonia, strep, sinus infections, UTIs, and more.
Because if you're sick in at night, traveling or stranded, you don't want options.
You want what is inside this kit. No waiting, no pharmacy, and no copays.
Just schedule a quick telehealth call.
And that's how you feel better faster and avoid serious complications.
Every family should have this kit, and here's how to order yours.
Order online in minutes and use the promo code to save $45. Your doctor-prescribed kit ships fast to your door, packed with medications to treat over 30 conditions. So when something hits, you're ready. And a wellness company telehealth doctor is always there if you need guidance.
Millions of people trust Prevagen for their brain.
I've been taking Prevagen for 4 years now. It's a life changer.
I've been taking Prevagen for 8 years now, and it's still helping me tremendously.
Well, I've been taking Prevagen, I know, for over 10 years.
Why do more people choose Prevagen year after year more than any other brain supplement?
Because it just works.
Prevagen is the #1 selling brain supplement nationwide for over 10 years. Prevagen, for your brain.
Whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fights.
Tonight, President Donald Trump becomes the first sitting United States president to attend an NBA Finals game.
All right, so there you have it. The president at Game 3 last night with the Knicks up 2-0 in the series. The Spurs actually made it a series by stealing one in New York. As you heard, the president was booed during the national anthem when he was put on camera. And he just kind of grins it away as he salutes the nation in a very blue city where I think he had a lot of supporters in the crowd, but who has the stones to cheer for the president when it's Donald Trump and you're sitting in New York City? So I think all the people that wanted to clap probably just cowered, and then the boos were as aggressive as they possibly could be. Here was the president after the game.
You mean when they had the camera on me? I thought it was very good, yeah. It was certainly amazing. It was I think, mostly cheers. It was loud and it was very enthusiastic.
There you go. The president attended Knicks games his whole life. He's always sat low. He's always been a big fan. He's a true fan of the franchise. But the NBA has become political in recent years. We've all watched it happen. LeBron helping to bring in some toxicity that we didn't see when Jordan was the king of the NBA.
A little left wing, yeah, I think so. It tends to be a little bit left wing, but it's great entertainment.
Great entertainment. Lefties blaming the loss last night on Trump's attendance, of course. New York liberals enraged by this, claiming he jinxed the team by attending the game. In reality, though, when you think about it, it wasn't him attending the game. It was all of the Democrat hype over him attending the game. That's what actually jinxed it, making it such a big deal, talking about it nonstop, saying that if we lose tonight, it's going to be because of Trump. You bring it to life. Former Dallas Cowboys wide receiver Des Bryant on X writing after the game, that's what you Knicks fans get for hating on the president. Here's how it sounded before the president attended the game. Take a listen.
It's not clear to me that Donald Trump is a big Knicks fan. He's just injecting himself into the NBA Finals because he always has to bring the MAGA circus in to town.
Stay away from the Knicks games next week. Do not come to Madison Square Garden. We don't want you.
Tonight ought to be all about the game, the players, and the fans. But Donald Trump wants to make tonight all about himself, like he always does.
So what's the real story here? The real story is that the Democrats wanted the Knicks to lose last night so that they could blame it on Donald Trump. And so they put all of that energy into it, and they got what they asked for. After the Knicks officially lost, you even had Stephen A. Smith and others blaming it on the president. Take a listen.
Brunson played better when you weren't there. Mikal Bridges played better when you weren't there. Karl Anthony Towns played better when you weren't there. Landry Shamet played better when you weren't there.
Only one thing to say, Trump jinx.
There's the subplot to this game is that the Knicks went into it with a 13-game winning streak, sort of remarkable. And people are like, what could possibly disrupt them for their rhythm? Well, we have an answer. President Donald J. Trump was there on the same night the Knicks' 13-game winning streak was snapped. Parentheses, there's no evidence of correlation between the two circumstances. I don't know. I think there are a lot of Knicks fans that would beg to differ.
Again, is it because the president attended the game, or is it because Democrats really wanted him to jinx the game so that they'd have something to talk about and they'd have some political ammunition? Here's the president's reaction.
He's a nice guy, but you need a certain aptitude to run for president. You need a high IQ. I'm not sure that Stephen has that. I don't think he does, actually.
And that was his reaction to Stephen A. Smith's claims about him attending the game. Bruce Blakeman is the executive for Nassau County here in New York. He's also running for governor. He attended the game last night, was in the president's suite. Good to have you on, sir. We're going to talk about Kathy Hochul in a second as well. What is the reason that the Knicks lost last night? Do you think it's because Donald Trump was in attendance?
Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, there were much more cheers than boos. I was there. I was outside. I wasn't in the suite. I was among the people. And they were very enthusiastic about President Trump. There was no jinx. What happened was the Knicks got back to some bad habits that they had early in the playoffs. They didn't run the offense through Karl Anthony Towns. Jalen Brunson seemed a little out of sorts. Josh Hart got into foul trouble. Those were the reasons why the Knicks lost. And by the way, the Knicks are a great team. The fact is they almost won, and they weren't playing particularly well. And the officiating wasn't exactly what I would say professional level.
Yeah, I agree with that. I remember the Knicks having a pretty healthy lead at one point in that game as well. So it's not like it was this dramatic blowout and the team played terrible because the president was there. The idea that Trump is not a real fan. Hakeem Jeffries, by the way, looked like the biggest goober ever in that press conference talking trash about Trump, saying that he's not a real fan. Here's the commissioner on that claim.
I'll also say about President Trump, you know, I've been with the league for a long time. I ran NBA Entertainment years ago. He did an I Love Kids game spot with us. He was a fixture at NBA at Madison Square Garden. You guys remember, well, all of you, when you played here, not Draymond, but back in the old days, he had courtside seats. He was here all the time. He was at drafts, so he's a genuine Knicks fan.
He's a genuine Knicks fan. Why the hell can't he go to a game?
Well, Commissioner Silver is absolutely right, because I went to many Knicks games over the years, and Donald Trump would be there at courtside, and he would enjoy the games. He's a real sports fan. He's a New York fan. He loves New York. Now, contrast that with my opponent, Kathy Hochul, who thought that the last time they were in the finals was in 1993.
Well,
Kathy,
let me just, and real quick, let me just play that.
Chicago
Let me just
Bulls.
play that moment so we can hear it. I want to actually play that, so just pause for 1 second.
What do you think of him saying he's a lifelong Knicks fan? I think that's how the Times reported it.
I asked him to name the starting lineup from 1993 championship team and see how he does.
All right, let's get your reaction to that. That's Hochul claiming that well, she has no idea when the Knicks last were even in the finals.
Yeah, she said it was 1993. In 1993, it was the Chicago Bulls. The starting lineup was Michael Jordan. It was Scottie Pippen. It was John Paxson. It was Horace Grant. It was Michael Jordan, as I say. It wasn't the Knicks. Kathy Hochul doesn't know anything about sports. She knows nothing about running a large organization. She's been a terrible governor.
Yep.
She's a terrible sports fan, and she doesn't know her NBA facts.
Yep, and you're going to take her job. Bruce Blakeman, we appreciate you coming on. Thank you, sir.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
All right. An activist judge blocks Trump's $100,000 H-1B visa fee because there's a judge that will block absolutely anything this president does. Congressman Chip Roy is fighting that, and he's up next.
When you're in the news business, it never stops. News is always breaking, and it's my job to get you the news, no spin, no BS. If you don't believe us, just watch us.
Watch Finity, weeknights, only on Newsmax.
Like a relentless weed, moderate to severe Crohn's disease symptoms can keep coming back. Break away to what's possible with Tremfya. Tremfya can help with remission at 12 weeks, 1 year, and 2 years. Some had visible repair of their intestinal lining. Serious allergic reactions, increased risk of infections or lower ability to fight them, and liver problems may occur. Before treatment, get checked for infections and TB. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or need a vaccine. Break away with Tremfya. Ask your doctor about Tremfya today.
Attention! Do you owe money to the IRS? If you owe $10,000 or more, you must hear this message because new Trump-era tax policy changes are providing relief to the American taxpayer. IRS policy changes in 2025 and 2026 have created new ways to resolve debt. Tax Relief Helpers knows exactly how to navigate them and could help you save thousands. Just call 800-357-9528 to protect your assets, home, and retirement.
I owed $87,000 in taxes. Tax Relief Helpers got the amount I owed down to just $3,500. I saved $83,500.
I got behind on my taxes and I owed $48,000. I called, and after they told me about the changes at the IRS, they got my bill fully removed.
We save Americans millions of dollars in tax debt every year, and we can help you. Call right now to take advantage of the latest Trump-era tax deductions to protect your assets, home, and retirement from the IRS. The call and consult are absolutely free. Call 800-357-9528. That's 800-357-9528. Attention! Do you owe money to the IRS? If you owe $10,000 or more, you must hear this message because new Trump-era tax policy changes are providing relief to the American taxpayer. IRS policy changes in 2025 and 2026 have created new ways to resolve debt. Tax Relief Helpers knows exactly how to navigate them and could help you save thousands. Just call 800-357-9528 to protect your assets, home, and retirement.
I owed $87,000 in taxes. tax relief helpers got the amount I owed down to just $3,500. I saved $83,500.
I got behind on my taxes and I owed $48,000. I called, and after they told me about the changes at the IRS, they got my bill fully removed.
We save Americans millions of dollars in tax debt every year, and we can help you. Call right now to take advantage of the latest Trump-era tax deductions to protect your assets, home, and retirement from the IRS. The call and consult are absolutely free. Call 800-357-9528. That's 800-357-9528.
Protect your family. Buy LifeVac now.
Thank you, Daddy. That was us over 10 years ago, filming LifeVac's first commercial in our living room.
Now LifeVac has saved 5,000 lives all over the world. All these people were saved by LifeVac.
Thousands of people choke to death every year, one child every 5 days.
These tragedies don't have to happen. LifeVac is the only FDA-authorized anti-choking device. Please consider protecting yourself, your family, your community. Go to lifevac.com today.
Thanks, Dad.
Welcome back. The Southern Poverty Law Center back on Capitol Hill for another grilling by the House Judiciary Committee today. Interim President CEO Brian Fair put on defense as his far-left group faces federal fraud charges for using donor money to actually fund extremist groups like the Ku Klux Klan and setting up what happened in Charlottesville, funding the racism that they claim to be fighting just to validate their existence, to help in elections, to create the illusion that we have this huge race problem in this country. That was the plan. Here's a great exchange between the head of the SPLC and Chairman Jim Jordan.
Mr. Fair, did the Southern Poverty Law Center use donor money to have field sources attend extremist rallies across the country?
We used donor money
So yes or no?
to pay confidential informants to infiltrate extremist organizations.
Did the Southern Poverty Law Center use donor dollars to have field sources grow existing chapters of extremist groups?
I assume you don't want me to answer since you're not giving me time to answer.
No, I'm giving you time to answer because that's a yes or did you use your donors' money for that purpose? Yes or no?
Again, those issues will be resolved in the pending allegations against the SPLC.
It seems to me if the answer is no, you could say no.
So on the other side, they wanted to turn this into a circus, defending the SPLC, targeting one of the Republican witnesses, Dr. Alveda King, who's actually the niece of Martin Luther King Jr. Take a look at this.
Do you pay the same people to do the bomb and then go and comfort the people from being bombed? You pay the same people to do both jobs? That's kind of fraud to me. That's weird and chaotic and confusing.
Well, Dr. King, I don't think there's any allegation that anybody who was working with the Southern Poverty Law Center bombed anyone. Do you have information to that effect? Because
I don't personally, but outside agitators did bomb our house in '63 and then ran back and took off the Ku Klux Klan sheets and put on police things and ran up in the yard.
Well,
and
that's
it was
a
the
statement.
same people. It was crazy. You hire them to do the bombing, then you
you're
hire them to
asserting a lot
fix
of
the
things.
bombing. That's weird.
Dr. King, you're asserting a lot of things under oath, and you haven't brought the evidence with you.
Meaning Jamie Raskin had no idea how to respond to that is really the answer there. Texas Congressman, House Judiciary Member Chip Roy joins us now. He was at the hearing today. What did we learn today, sir?
Yeah, Rob, well, first of all, it was a great hearing, and Dr. King did a fantastic job, and I was glad that Chairman Jordan called this hearing. You know, I called a hearing as the chairman of the Subcommittee of the Constitution back in December on this topic. We had Tony Perkins from the Family Research Council there, and some of the things we learned that you didn't cover in some of those snippets that you just showed was the exchange I had with Mr. Fair, where I asked a very simple question. You know, why are all these targeted to Christian groups and organizations, but you're not putting your focus in terms of your hate map on, for example, far-left anti-Jewish groups or, for example, Islamic groups, radical Islamic groups. And he had literally no answer. And then he kept trying to defend it, and he said, well, Mr. Roy, the truth is we focus on what they do and what they say about marriage and their hatred toward LGBTQ. And I said, wait a minute. You mean to tell me you think that the Muslim groups, that the Islamic groups, that they're just totally cool with the LGBTQ world? And he had nothing. He could say nothing because there's literally nobody, no groups on there that are truly Islamic groups out of their 1,500. They are targeted to conservative Christian organizations. They focused on Family Research Council. They got shot up. They focused on Charlie Kirk and TPUSA. Charlie got shot. Yeah. They focus on all these groups. They put me on the hate map. Look, the fact is this group is a far-left group that is organized and using their resources to undermine President Trump, targeting the Charlottesville rally, using it to make money, putting confidential informants out there, and now funneling donor money. And by the way, we believe, you know, their engagement with banks should be looked at as well.
Yeah, you want to get rid of their tax-exempt status in your state. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a political operation at the SPLC. That's what it's morphed into over the years. And let's just be honest. If it's a political operation, the operation is stronger if the country appears to be more racist. If we have a bigger problem with race, their side of the political aisle will do better in elections because they're the ones that claim to be fighting that.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we saw in the testimony today, and the evidence that was put forth in the indictment that DOJ brought in the superseding indictment, indicating that they're profiting off of this, right? That their fundraising skyrocketed from something like $60 million to $120 million from 2017, 2018 in that time frame. And we know what they were doing, and they were trying to leverage what happened in Charlottesville, and they were very much involved with what happened on the ground in Charlottesville. And by the way, this is a much bigger problem than just SPLC, and it's not just Antifa. No. It is a vast network that are pushing the Islamification of our country, that are pushing the radicalization of our judges and our DAs with the Arabella Network and the Wren Collective and Soros funding, and then all that we're seeing here with SPLC and all these radical groups pushing Marxism. All of it is a part of a network of leftists trying to undermine our country. I'm proud that Secretary Besson, I've had conversations with him in the White House, they're targeting it, so is DOJ, and we're exposing it now in the Judiciary Committee as we should.
I got 30 seconds left, but I wanted to get your quick take on this Obama-appointed judge striking down Trump's $100,000 H-1B visa fee, which is designed to incentivize companies to find people in this country to do the job. Don't just bring in the cheap labor from India and the rest of the world. They're going to try and strike that down.
Yeah, of course they are. These are activist judges that want to insert themselves into the policymaking that we know is right. The H-1B visa program has been getting scammed. We're seeing it exposed. Sarah Gonzalez has been doing great reporting on this out of Dallas-Fort Worth. It's been a major problem. You're seeing housing prices go down now that we're trying to highlight it. I've introduced legislation to address it. It should be focused on, making sure we end the lottery, making sure it's focused on, jobs that are here. You can't lay people off and then go to the H-1Bs. They're basically putting forward people who are not high skilled and using high skilled as a cover, all because corporate America is saying we should do it. We need to tell corporate America to stuff it. We need to focus on protecting our country, putting American workers first, and making sure that we have our own housing supply and that we're not destroying American culture. So this $100,000 deal, we got to go codify it if these judges are going to kill it.
Yeah, you do. Congressman, good to see you. Chip Roy, thank you so much.
Thanks, Rob. God bless.
All right, actor Idris Elba with some very sensible words for the Broccoli family, the owners of James Bond.
Good evening. Following this morning's report on precious metals courier scams, authorities and community leaders are continuing to urge vigilance as these schemes expand nationwide.
Criminals are posing as government agencies to create fear. They convince individuals that their bank accounts are at risk, creating a false sense of urgency. They trick victims into converting savings into gold, then send a courier to their home. If someone asks to collect your assets, it's fraud.
After Monetary Gold was contacted regarding a customer targeted by bad actors misusing our company's name, we fully cooperated with law enforcement, and the perpetrators were later apprehended. Stay informed, verify all requests involving precious metals. And if you already own metals, Monetary Gold is offering a complimentary portfolio assessment and a second opinion at no cost. Call today. It matters.
The Dutton Ranch. We're back in business.
You heard right. Let's go to work. I'm glad you're making friends, honey.
You're every bit as advertised.
You're damn right he is.
Fighting a good fight, buddy.
There's a rhythm that picks up when life slows down. When you have ATTR cardiac amyloidosis, there's still beauty to tend, still joy to gather and give. It's about living for what you love and not letting ATTRCM define who you are. Attruby is an oral medicine proven to help adults with ATTRCM live longer and have fewer hospitalizations due to heart issues. Attruby helps slow the progression of ATTRCM. Tell your doctor if you're pregnant, plan to become pregnant, or are breastfeeding, and about the medications you take. The most common side effects were mild and included diarrhea and abdominal pain. If you have ATTR cardiac amyloidosis, ask your cardiologist if Attruby is right for you. Time to get busy living.
Little by little, age-related macular degeneration tries to take away your vision. You're not the type to sit back and do nothing, so now's the time to take action and make a plan with your doctor that includes PreserVision. It contains the clinically proven formula recommended by the NEI to help reduce the risk of moderate to advanced AMD progression. PreserVision is backed by over 20 years of clinical studies, and it's right here in the palm of your hand.
You spent a lifetime becoming who you are. Don't let AMD take that away.
It's your vision. Take action. Choose PreserVision.
Mike Hammond of Signal Relief. We've helped nearly 700,000 feel relief in their back, shoulders, and knees with our technology. But for many of us, it's our feet that hurt. And when they hurt, our walks get shorter, activities are skipped, and the moments we love start slipping away. That's why we created the Signal Step, a patent-pending insole built using the same proven technology people already trust from Signal Relief. Signal uses no drugs. There's nothing on the market like it. It's relief without the side effects. It's reusable, fits virtually into any shoe, and in a recent study, over 85% felt relief, and it comes with a money-back guarantee. So what are you waiting for? Feel relief with every step. If you're hurting, go to signalstep.com and get relief today.
Welcome back. Time now for news from the left. D.C.'s Democrat Mayor Muriel Bowser was once a very loud voice of resistance to Donald Trump, as was pretty much everyone in her party. But we have to say she has been a whipped puppy over the past year. Bowser's been allowing the president to clean up our Capitol. She's stopped pushing back on pretty much anything of his policy, and also allowing the president to remove the Black Lives Matter plaza just north of the White House, which was long overdue. D.C. crime has plummeted. Memorials are once again clean. The fountains are clean and operational. The city is beautiful and vibrant and safer. All of this thanks to a new president. These are the things that you vote for politicians to do that the Democrat Party never wants to do. Here is the mayor on the difference that she's seen between Trump's first and second terms.
The first time I met with Trump, he was then the president-elect for the first time, I realized that he didn't know that much about D.C. Mm-hmm. He viewed D.C. From the lens of a real estate developer. When he came back, I think he realized how much influence he can have in D.C. And that could be a backdrop for any number of conversations he has around the country.
Very interesting to see how she's evolved with Donald Trump and as he cleans up her city. And she's been so quiet about it and so helpful. It's interesting to see how that works. You wonder why. Next up, a new James Bond film, Bond 26, is currently in very early pre-production. Actor Idris Elba, who was potentially going to get the role, it was always spoken about as a possibility, says he doesn't want a woke James Bond, telling British GQ Bond is so unrealistic, so a hint of reality is good, but let's not try and make it woke. Adding, I think you've got to be pure to what it is, escapism. Don't try and answer the world's taste, just be Bond. Elba was rumored to be casted for the role of James Bond at one point. It says it was never legitimate, though. It was always just a rumor. We still don't know who's going to be the next James Bond. He says, I've always felt that it's not a realistic thing. James Bond was written how he was for a reason. Bond is big all over the world, and audiences won't go for a black male, an African male playing James Bond, according to Elba. That's not what they like in the culture of the film, in their culture. Okay, so it's a white character, and what's wrong with that? And he can admit it. Why can't everybody admit it? If the character was any other color, they would never change it, no matter what. It would be fully off limits. Why is it okay to change it if it's white? Why can't they just be a white character as James Bond? Next up from Breitbart, free if you can get it. Emergency room waits kill 300 people a week in socialized healthcare UK. Isn't that a heck of a headline? Article detailing how official government data by the Royal College of Emergency Medicine found there were almost 16,000 avoidable deaths associated with the long delays in 2025 that come with single-payer health care, 10 times higher than a decade earlier because nobody can get into a hospital because of overcrowding, the result of socializing it, and it costs more and more and more, and you still can never get through it. All of that. Now, the next time you see those headlines about how Republicans are killing people because they won't give you universal health care, show them that headline and show them what it's really like. Finally, New York Times writer David Brooks getting some heat after hammering Maine Senate candidate Graham Platner. Take a listen to this.
How are you looking at all of this?
The guy's a moral degenerate. You know, the abuse of women, the sexting, the Nazi tattoo. I don't even need to say anything beyond his Reddit posts, which are not in the past, by the way. He did that for a long time, abusing people who might have been raped, diminishing rape in the military, insulting fellow military officers, calling himself a communist. It's a pathetic, empty guy who postures in a way that's kind of repulsive. The Democrats are supporting Platner for the same reason the Trump people are supporting Trump. You had a lot of people in this country, Republicans and Democrats, who are good people, but they're morally inarticulate, they're morally undeveloped.
He makes some good points about Graham Platner, but he should know better than to go after his own party. He's a liberal New York Times writer. He says that, what do we have here? One social media user quick to call out Brooks for acting holier than thou about Graham Platner, pointing out one user writing, David Brooks left his wife for his young assistant. I don't want to hear about character from him at all. Before getting divorced in 2013, Brooks was married for 27 years, left her for a much younger lady, and then ended up marrying her in 2017. Goes after Graham Platner, gets hammered with the recourse, as you would expect from the left. All right, the reflecting pool in Washington looks absolutely amazing, and there is so much fury over that. Next.
Closed captioning brought to you by MagnaLife Pain and Inflammation Relief Roll-On.
Your muscle and joint inflammation is real. Here's what real customers are saying about MagnaLife Pain and Inflammation Relief Roll-On. It worked great.
Available at your local retailer.
Richard Karn here with the brand new Pocket Hose Aero, featuring advanced sprayer technology that turns any garden hose into a powerful cleaning machine. This baby comes with 4 interchangeable nozzles. From wide spray to pinpoint, it does it all. Can't reach the second floor? Well, Aero shoots farther than your sprayer ever did before. It's so powerful, it can even knock over bricks. Now available at Walmart, Ace Hardware, and on Amazon with free shipping. Order now.
Summer is coming fast. Now you can get your best summer body in just one visit to Sono Bello, America's #1 cosmetic surgery specialist.
This summer, I'm excited to not be covered up.
I've got abs again. Sono Bello put me in the right spot to just feel good again.
I feel beautiful. I went from this to this in just one visit.
I feel confident.
Micro laser technology permanently removes stubborn fat, tightens and tones skin in just one visit with less downtime.
My shirts were extra large. Now I'm wearing a bathing suit. It changed my life.
There's no more frustration, just permanent results.
My stomach is gone.
Sono Bello has over 50,000 5-star reviews and expert surgeons. Call now for your personalized consultation. That's over a $250 value. Free. Easy monthly payment options make your best body more affordable than ever. Step into summer with confidence. Call Sono Bello today.
Thinking about a new building project? Only General Steel lets you see your project instantly, followed by pricing you can count on. Design your project in 3D or tell us your vision and we'll do the rest. Text PLAN to 59583 and we'll deliver a personalized design to your inbox in minutes. That's right, you'll see your project inside and out, complete with your customizations instantly. Architects charge thousands to capture your vision like this. Backed by decades of experience and thousands of successful projects, the General Steel design system gives you more than a price. It gives you a clear vision you can build on. Text PLAN to 59583 to create your own building or browse thousands of unique customer designs with new ideas published every hour. From personal shops to business expansions, see your new space inside and out down to the details. Get insulation tailored to your climate, paint colors that perform where you live, and expertly placed doors and windows that deliver access, ventilation, and natural light based on your unique needs. Text PLAN to 59583 to plan and price your project instantly with General Steel. That's plan to 59583, because if you need space, you need the General.
All right, so finally tonight, the reflecting pool in Washington is open. It is full. It is spectacular to look at. The Post, though, Washington Post, had to find a way to complain. Look at the smaller headline there. Trump's $10 million reflecting pool is full again. It looks about the same, showing a before and after picture.
It looks completely, like a 5-star resort.
And let's just point out, so it's $10 million. Well, Trump says it was more like $2 million. It had major structural problems, leaks. It had persistent algae blooms. It had all sorts of issues that caused this. But of course, now they care about $10 million, which, Rob Finnerty, that's like a slow weekend for a Somalian migrant in Minneapolis.
Yeah, exactly, right? They didn't even show up.
They were going to spend that to fix the reflecting pool?
They turned the sign on the door and said closed.
Closed.
No, you know what? And we're going to do some of this tonight on the Finnerty telecast, which I hope you will remain for.
I'm going to sit right here and watch.
You as well, Rob, please, no pressure. But this is the difference between the media when Trump's president and any Democrat is president. Like, we can't just say, good job, Donald Trump, it looks great, and move on.
No.
Right?
No, can't do it. 10 million. 10 million now they care about.
Yes, 10 million. Rob, stay tuned. Finnerty starts right now.
Information. Truth. Is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.